and welcome to another episode of ADHD Friendly. Becca, I notice I tend to get small when I do my introduction, so I'm trying to be mindful and sit up. I'm Patty Blenderman. I am your host and the creator of ADHD-Friendly.com, where you'll find lots of resources designed to tilt that playing field so that we're thriving with ADHD. I invite you to check it out. All right, Becca, we are on episode 124.
Woo-hoo.
This is what I've been looking forward to for a while. You probably don't know what this one is yet, but you will today. And I'm curious if you've heard of it when we get into the topic, but I'm just going to give you my quick overview. Going to start off like I always do with a celebration. Then I've got an ADHD-friendly tip. And then my topic for this episode is Sunday Scaries.
Ooh.
Have you heard of this?
I have heard of the Sunday.
I was gonna say, I think we talked about this in the past.
It's a good one though. Good topic.
I'm very excited about it because there's just a lot to dig into here, and it's not uncommon for those of us with ADHD to experience this. So just going to dive into what it is and some strategies to support it. So first, a celebration, and like we've been doing, going to welcome if you are a new subscriber since our last episode. It's been a week. Becca, have you looked?
No.
Okay, so we were at 639 last week. This is so, I'm going to swear, I had to stop myself. This is so stinking exciting. That we're finding, new people are finding us and connecting to what we're doing. I know. I'm just
shocked.
I am so humble every time. I'm like, and I hope I'll stay gracious and open to when that doesn't change or maybe goes the other direction. Please let me know if there's something I'm doing that's driving you crazy before you leave. But thank you, welcome. So really just very, very grateful for your time and focus on what I'm sharing to help hopefully give you some ideas, some sparkly strategies to try to support you to thrive with ADHD. All right, so second celebration. My daughter is, as you know, in college, and she's living at home and commuting because it's very, it's only like a 10-minute drive. So she went to class last week and there was no class. And so literally within 25 minutes or so, I hear her come back in. I'm like, what's she doing back?
What are you doing?
And she's like, there isn't any school today. I'm like, oh, the whole President's Day thing.
Oh,
so I was like, well, how did you miss that? Isn't that on your semester calendar? Because when she started college, I got her the semester calendar because it's my favorite go-to visual tool to see time over the course of the semester. And she's like, oh, that still has the dates from last semester on it. I just hate the idea of filling it in, erasing it, starting over. She just couldn't bring herself to do it. Okay. So my celebration is, and depending on, everybody has different parenting approaches, parenting styles. I'm a pretty hands-off parent. Once my kids, I always said, once you demonstrated how to do something, and my example is when in kindergarten, first grade, when they showed me how to make their own sandwiches, I'm like, all right, I'm out. You're making your own lunches from now on. I'll buy all the ingredients. I'll get everything, but you're making your lunch, right? So I don't want to have to do things that they can do on their own. But what I've learned over the years, I have 4 kids, all of them impacted in different ways with executive function challenges. And what I've learned is for the ones that are more impacted with ADHD, it isn't they know how to do it thing. So I should just let them do it. They're not going to do certain things, period.
Yeah.
Even if they know how to do it, they know they need to do it. They know that it's going to benefit them to do it. It's what I always say. We know all of those things, but we still don't do it. And I knew when she said what she said, that the calendar was this thing, that it was a tool she had, that she would enjoy using it, but she was not
gonna take that
step and be able to take the action to set it up for the semester. And it bothered me so much. I remember throughout my morning, I was working with my clients and doing my things. And then I was just I had a little break and I was like, I wonder if I would really drive her crazy if I went up there and I, brought the stuff to erase the dry erase board and just set it up. And I brought all my palette of colors so I could write them all in.
Sparkly.
And so I went up and I asked her if she would mind. Because to me, I love setting up calendars. So for me, it was like a gift, like that she would give me to let me do it. But I also wanted to honor, it's her calendar, it's in her space.
Her tool. Yeah.
If she didn't want me to do it, I needed to be able to let that go and not be attached to it. And I did my best to be there, but luckily she said I could. So I just went up and I cleaned the whole thing off, and I just wrote up because it was now February.
Right.
So I did February, March, April, May, which to me is the best because now you can see the whole semester because it ends in May, which is very, very sparkly. And it's what I always recommend to my kids. So I'm sharing the celebration, but I'm also sharing it in case it would support you to manage your time, to have a way to see further out than today, this week, this month. But also if you have a student in your life who would benefit from a tool like this, it's just such a game changer. So, excuse me, getting over a cold. So I've got a bit of scratchy throat. I always recommend when I'm working with my students, this is a tool I recommend to my college students particularly. If nothing else, first buy it, right?
Yes.
There's different price points. They can be as cheap as like 20, 25 bucks all the way up to the one that I'm going to show you that is on my daughter's wall is more like 70 bucks. But buying it is first, which can be a challenge. Once you have it, like taking it out of the packaging it came in.
Yeah.
Because in my experience, I've never seen a semester calendar like at Target or Walmart. Like you do have to order them online.
Order it. Yeah.
Getting it onto the wall, the door, like wherever you're going to put it.
Yeah.
Challenge number 2, right? Challenge number 3 is then writing on it, like actually like filling it out.
The dates and
so it was already on the wall. So we taken care of these things. It was a little bit more of a challenge because we're already filled in, which I could hear that was her resistance, was I have to erase the whole thing. And it's a little tedious. I know you've done this, so it takes a little effort. But getting it filled in with just the dates, which is where I always encourage my students, like if you just fill in the dates and then maybe just put in spring break or winter break or, Thanksgiving break, days the school is closed. Exactly. You can see those like, oh, I only have like another month and then I can see a break, or there's only 3 more weeks until I've got a long weekend. It helps your brain to see what's coming up.
Yeah.
And it helps with motivation. It helps you to plan. If you put nothing else on the calendar, it's a game changer. But then maybe as you're using it, you might notice like, oh, I'm going to go ahead because it's already filled in. Maybe I'll just write down, I've got an exam next Friday. Let me write that on there. It's like pulling you into using it.
Totally.
So I printed out her school's academic calendar and I just went, and I'm just going to hold this up again. If you're listening to this, I invite you to check out the YouTube channel, ADHD-Friendly. I'm just putting up a picture of the finished calendar. I wrote in her brother's birthday so she could see that. I wrote in when daylight savings time kicks back in so she could see that. But I really wrote in spring break, final exams, so she could see what those major milestones are. And I meant to go and look before I recorded this and I forgot. I got distracted. To see if she's used it anymore beyond this. But she was so appreciative of it. And I was so appreciative of her letting me do it.
Oh, it was a win-win.
It was a win-win. But it's one of those areas that I know my kids well enough to know which ones, if I just say, you know what, I got you the tool, it's yours to use, have at it or don't have at it, which is what I do a lot of the time. Yeah. But in this instance, because I know how much this tool is a game changer for our brain, it literally just creates so much awareness of how much time I have, when something's due. If it's not due till next month, you can see next month. It's just such a great thing for students. Or if you have like a longer term project, it's so helpful to see it, that I knew if I filled it out, she would be able to use it. And for me, like that's like a good partnership.
Absolutely.
Where I'm doing it because I'm choosing to, but I also know she's more likely to engage with it if it's set up for her just to then engage with it because it's already filled out. So that is my celebration, that I found a way to help in a way that worked for both of us.
I love that.
Thank you. All right. On to my ADHD-friendly tip for this week. And this is something I had never heard of. So I was reading one of my books and I came across a term that I hadn't heard of, and I did this dive into it, and I'm going to share it here. So it's called, and I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, eustress. So it's the word stress, but with EU in front of it, eustress. And so the article I was reading was talking about how eustress and distress are like 2 very different kinds of stress. And it's important because we all experience stress. And I'm just going to kind of give you some information on what eustress is and how you might be able to intentionally use it to support yourself when you are experiencing stress. Ooh. So first I'm going to define it. It's a term that was actually coined by Hans, I don't know how to say his last name, Seelye, Selye. And the EU in front of the word stress is Greek. It's a Greek prefix for good. So it means good stress, which was why it piqued my interest so much. Because I was like, number one, how have I never heard of this?
Right.
And number two, how can stress be good? Because to me, stress never feels good.
Bad.
No. So I was like, what? So it literally means good stress. So distress, and this is a definition that I'm getting now from the APA, the American Psychological Association. They define distress as the negative stress response that results from being overwhelmed by demands, losses, or perceived threats. And they say that it triggers a physiological change that can pose serious health risks. So we all know stress isn't good for us.
Right.
So distress, bad.
Bad.
Eustress, also this is from the same information from the APA, is the positive stress response. So they say it's a type of stress that results from challenging but attainable and enjoyable or worthwhile tasks.
Ooh.
So they use examples like participating in an athletic event. So maybe you're a little like stressed about it, but you're looking forward to it, and it can have a positive benefit.
Oh.
Really, they said like any competition can have that kind of experience. I thought of riding a roller coaster.
Ooh.
Where I'm always like really nervous and stressed about it. But when I'm done, I'm like, I loved it. I'm always like, first of all, I'm like thrilled that I'm still alive. But it does feel like a sense of accomplishment that I did it. So it has a really discomforting feeling leading up to it.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited when I'm done. And so that they say it has a beneficial effect by generating a sense of fulfillment or achievement and facilitating growth. So literally it can help, like we're mastering a new skill. We're developing something that we didn't have before. It's increasing our level of performance, which is where a lot of the competition contests came in. So eustress is the good type of stress that you didn't know you needed, is an article that I found once I was so piqued by the differences between good stress and bad stress, and that there was even a way to have good stress.
Right.
So an article by Elizabeth Scott, she's a PhD. This was in Very Well Mind. And I'm going to quote her here. She says, physically, eustress can often resemble distress in many ways. She says you might feel nervous, your heart might pound, your thoughts might race, but the difference is how these physical sensations are perceived. So she says with distress, you feel uncomfortable and maybe even overwhelmed. With eustress, she said you can feel excitement or a sense of anticipation. So that's where I literally, when I read this, I thought of like I do with roller coasters.
Right.
I'm always very stressed, but I'm always super excited when I'm done. Ooh. And I always have a sense of anticipation because, or a satisfaction, and like I achieved something because I did something that scared me. So she said, you can experience this when you start a new job.
Totally.
Right? You're a little nervous. I think of it as stepping outside your comfort zone because you're doing something that's new and scary, but you know you're going to grow from it.
Right.
She said maybe if you move to a new place, new city, new area, new anything, you're doing something. Traveling.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
Like you get excited for vacation, but maybe the actual airport part.
Yeah.
That would stress me
out. Or going
out.
to a place, like I know, like whenever we think about traveling to some place where English is not the primary language,
a different country,
creates a discomfort. Or the food, like when I think about like, oh, am I going to like the food or whatever?
Totally. That's that good stress.
I was super excited because she literally gave the example of the excitement of a roller coaster ride.
You're like, I was like,
that's what I pictured. And just new experiences in general.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'm going to quote her again here. She said, in some instances, distress can transform into eustress.
Ooh.
This is getting to the tip, guys. So I shared last week about how I got overwhelmed. I got in my head about the ADHD-friendly member that canceled. Again, I took it very personally, even though it was even the message about canceling was nothing negative or so I really got to build this up because at some point somebody, I'm sure, is not going to happen something I say or do. But I like the idea of, kind of shifting that from, oh, but this could be an opportunity to learn something here. So keeping in mind, number one, I'm not a medical provider of any kind. So I'm just sharing information here, not advising medically at all. There's my little disclaimer. Eustress is still a type of stress.
Right.
Okay. So eustress can become distress is what, again, no, I forgot her name. What Elizabeth Scott says. She said it can even become chronic stress if it becomes too intense or lasts for too long. So it's important, even if, it's like, I'm going to keep challenging myself. Too much of a good thing is still too much. So some strategies for how to use it are seeing threats as challenges. So kind of like what I shared with the person, like instead of seeing that as like evidence that, why am I even trying this? It's never going to work.
Yeah.
What can I learn from this? And how can I use this to motivate myself to up my game and learn more, or offer something that's really going to resonate with more people, or whatever it is. So some tips for how to do that are, they said threats tend to elicit greater stress response, where challenges are more opportunities to prove yourself and learn how much you can accomplish. So instead of seeing something as, oh, I don't know how to do that, but I could learn. And I wonder what it could look like. So I'll share in another episode, but I was sharing with Becca something I learned, a new knitting skill. And I was really, really, really reluctant to take it on. But now that I've learned it, I'm like, oh, it's very satisfying. I'm kind of proud of myself for doing it. So that threat, something new, it's going to be hard. I'm not going to be good at it too. Who knows what can happen? I don't know.
Exciting.
It's a challenge. I can try it and see what happens. So then she says, this understanding can help you evaluate many of the stresses in your life as challenges rather than threats. So she says, using positive self-talk, focusing on what you can control, adjusting your mindset, and saying no to activities that don't serve you are ways to shift that challenge to, or shift that threat to a challenge. Yeah. So remember, too much of any stress, including eustress, can lead to burnout or worse. So we don't want to, have more stress than we can tolerate, but looking for opportunities to turn distress into eustress is very sparkly to me. So that's our ADHD-friendly tip for this week. Hello, friends. I'm ADHD-friendly girl. Are you overwhelmed, unmotivated, run down? Do you stop before you start? The answer to your challenges can be found at ADHD-Friendly. ADHD-Friendly is where we make the doing easier. Join ADHD-Friendly today and start tilting the playing field in favor of your ADHD brain and start thriving. ADHDfriendly.com, where intention meets action. Now for our main topic, Sunday Scaries. I don't know if everybody's heard of this. My daughter was the first person that used this term. I think it was in her first year of teaching. Yeah. And there wasn't a word for this when I was teaching, but I immediately knew what she meant when she said it because I experienced that. And I used to say, like, I would get the Sunday Scaries, which typically, let me get into it and then I'll tell you my story.
Yeah.
So the Cleveland Clinic defines Sunday Scaries as feelings of intense anxiety and dread that routinely occur every Sunday. So they typically appear later in the day on Sunday. So kind of like as the day is starting to wane and you're getting it towards the end of the day. But they say some people experience this earlier, even in the morning. I swear to you. I started to have Sunday Scaries on Saturdays.
Oh my gosh.
I was like so stressed for a period of my teaching career that Friday and Friday night were like the best nights of the week. Yeah. Saturday, as the day went on, it just kind of was like, this is my last night before I have to get up and go to school the next day. It started to build. So I would say, like, it can even, at least from my experience, start earlier and like kind of take up more than half the weekend. It was pretty like it kind of had like a 24-hour window of enjoyment before it started to build up again. And I couldn't do anything on Sunday. So some of these strategies I found really interesting because I would have found it really hard. But again, I didn't try these at the time. So I'd be curious how it might work in that same situation. I've tried them with different kinds of Sunday Scaries, but I've never experienced Sunday Scaries as intensely as I did when I was teaching. That was the highest level of Sunday Scaries I ever had. One of my colleagues, who was a first year teacher with me as well, this was pretty much our first year of teaching. It wasn't as bad after that. But she used to literally, I don't know what the word is, in the shower in the morning.
Oh my gosh, that's some anxiety right there.
I know. And I used to be like, okay, all right. I feel like physically ill, but I'm not vomiting.
Right.
So I'm like, there's my win. I'm not actually throwing up. So the symptoms, this is again from Very Well Mind. this is from a Very Well Mind article. They said the symptoms of Sunday scaries include increased sweating, upset stomach, a headache, trouble sleeping.
Ooh,
right? Because
yeah.
you're kind of stressed, right?
How are you
It's
gonna have a good night's sleep? Yeah.
Yep. And some of the causes they identified are a high stress job.
Okay.
I know there's a lot of stressful jobs out there, but
Yeah.
teachers, man, feel me. Like I'm so appreciative of people that including my daughter
Yeah,
that do
for
it
a
and love it.
living.
An upcoming busy week. So if
Yeah.
you have a lot coming up that you're trying to manage, it can kind of create that anticipatory anxiety of
Yeah.
like, it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be a lot. It could even that it's not work related, right? So maybe you have company coming in and you've just got a lot going on, right? It doesn't have to be tied to work. It's just a lot coming up can be one of those things that can cause it. Not handling things the week before. So as I shared with you, like if I don't do my weekly planning, I will definitely feel more of that apprehension, even though there's not a lot to be stressed about. I got a good routine in my work. If I don't know what's coming up, I just tend to feel that stress.
Of course, because you can't see your week.
No, so the weekly planning allows me to kind of go into my weekend and approach Monday as like, oh, I know what's going on. I just have to, I really enjoy it. But so they say, you know, you typically are thinking of everything, either maybe you didn't get it done the week before and you don't quite know what's coming up. So now you're knowing you're going to have to do everything that you didn't get done last week on top of whatever else is ahead this week. So it can create that feeling as Sunday is coming to an end if Monday is the first day of your week. The other thing that they say could cause it is struggling to balance work and home. So they say 2 in 5 people have Sunday scaries from trying to balance work life and home life.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing.
That is a hard thing to balance.
All right. So some strategies for the Sunday scaries. Again, these are from Very Well Mind. So they recommend prioritizing sleep all week long, not just the night before, not just all week long. For more information on sleep with ADHD, check out episode 122. Did a bunch of strategies in there, information on how it supports our brain in that episode. Another strategy is do a brain dump. So again, if you're thinking of all the things you get done, I always call it swirling in your brain. It's like you're just like marinating in soup up there. It's not helping you to keep it in. Get it out of your head and into a list. Piece of paper, pen, write it down. Number 3, separate home from work. So they said keep work and home separate. So if you work from home, maybe find a way, a routine that lets you separate, like now I'm arriving for work. I've shared before, I think I've even shared in a previous episode, I had a client years ago that worked from home, like pre-pandemic, like this was like a unique thing that they were trying to create some structure around. And it was hard because they got up and they were working in an environment that they did everything else in. So transitioning, getting your brain to focus in that environment can be really challenging. So she would get in her car and go drive out and pick up coffee and come back. And when she came back, it was work
time.
Yeah. And so having a transition can really help to separate work from home. So having like a commute built in, it could be you go for a walk and when you come back, you don't have to go spend money if that's, not something that works for you. But and then a transition at night too, right? So I always want to encourage to keep that separate. Again, you don't just kind of like, okay, now I'm like carrying the laptop, like having like a transition, like, okay, I'm shutting this down. And, it could be even that you get changed, right? So now like you're in like your home clothes, whatever it is, have a transition. Turn off work notifications if possible. So if you're like an ER nurse, doctor, or something, and you're on call, that's not possible. But if it is possible, right? So I think a lot of us tend to feel this sense of urgency that, oh, I can't be out of reach. That takes a toll. So preventing those interruptions from interfering with your time off, so you have that balance, can be really important. I learned this lesson years ago when I had a client text me on Thanksgiving and asked me for an emergency
like session.
Oh, because they had a family emergency, and I was like, okay, I'm a coach. I don't handle like emergencies. I'm not a therapist or a medical provider. And I texted and I said, can you tell me a little bit more? And it was that their child was refusing to do their homework that was assigned over the Thanksgiving break. And so I'm always like, be aware of your environment and what does constitute something, you know, so maybe like you set it up so that certain people can get through.
Yeah.
You're prioritizing those contacts, but you're shutting off like things that really can feel urgent in the moment, but they're not.
But they can wait.
So you really want to honor your time so you have that separation. Practice relaxation strategies like deep breathing, taking a warm bath, playing soothing music, whatever works for you to have that ability to, you know, create a nice calm environment. Yeah. This is the one that I found hard, but I'm recommending it because I can't say it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Stay active on Sundays.
Oh, like do something?
Do something. I know.
On a Sunday?
So they said meet up with friends. I have one of my son's best friends, and they've been doing this as long as they've been best friends. So I'm assuming as long as they've been together as a couple, have done Sunday dinner. And it's like this big dinner and always like on Sunday night. I don't even know if I want to go to Sunday dinner, let alone host Sunday dinner. And it wasn't just their immediate family, it was
friends.
Yeah, it was like, you know, come along. And I just have always been, I admire it greatly because it's so outside of what I could navigate towards, because I don't cook, right? I don't know how to meal plan. I'm not a host. Like none of those things work for me. But the Sunday night really doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like trying to conserve my energy to gear up. But I like the idea of maybe it would build your energy up because you're not wasting it thinking about how much you're dreading the next day. So I like it. I like the idea of it. Then the last strategy that they recommend is create a weekly plan.
Hey now.
Right. And so I put down, you know, with an outline of how you'll tackle your to-do list so your brain can relax because now you know you've got the time to do the things that need to get done because you've planned it. So when this episode comes out, it is my hope that the ADHD-Friendly Planner course will be available, it'll be finished. If not, check back in a week because it is in the final stages of production as we record this. So that can help you step by step use the weekly planning tools to do exactly what can help if you struggle with Sunday scaries.
Absolutely.
Okay. Oh no, there was more. I'm sorry. That wasn't the last one.
We have another.
There's another. Make Mondays a day you look forward to. Okay. I love this. So when I read that, I was like, this is something I actively did. So I had kids that had Sunday scaries about school.
Yeah.
And so especially if it was like a long weekend, oh my gosh, like any kind of break longer than the weekend, but the weekend itself was always challenging to come back and get up. Not for all of them, but for a couple of them to get up and like get ready and go to school on Monday morning. And I started something called Sonic Mondays, where every Monday, if you went to school, it was like part of it. You got to go to school to be part of it. I pick them up from carpool at the end of the day and I drive them through Sonic because it was happy hour. Because you know, you got 4 kids, you got to think about like, how can I do this in a way I can promise I can continue doing it? Absolutely. And I could get, and this is, you know, 15 years ago, I could get all of them, or more than that. I'm really bad at mental math. I could get all of them something during happy hour, and it was like $4 or $5 for all of us.
Done and done.
And it was just like, I can do that. It's something I can commit to. It was very sparkly to them. It's like Sonic Monday. So they looked forward, like, remember guys, it's Sonic Monday. And I can kind of like plant that seed to get them up and get them going in the morning.
School and you get a treat. I love that.
Some adult strategies are, you know, maybe plan time to meet a friend for lunch. So you're like, all right, I just have to make it to lunchtime and then I can go and I look forward to meeting my friend. Or you save a favorite TV show, an episode, something you're gonna look forward to seeing after work or school.
Get your work done.
So, you know, having a strategy to make that Monday kind of fun instead of dreading it.
Sparkling.
Leave breathing room in your day or in your week when you're planning it. So it's not everything packed, because that creates that feeling that nothing else is going to fit. And I hope everything goes perfectly or I'm really in trouble.
Yeah.
Create some breathing space so you can get things done. And then the last is self-care Sundays. I love this too, where think about taking care of yourself, focusing on you. So get rid of the devices. If they're going to, you know, scrolling social media, if that's creating stress. Practice gratitude, maybe like identifying the things that you're really grateful for. Use it as a day to do something new. Get into your comfy PJs, get comfortable, right? Tidy up something, right? A clutter can create stress. So just like, you know, or go for like an evening walk. That felt doable when I read that. I was like, I could do that. I may not be able to like do a big social thing, especially not me hosting it, but
a nice
go for a nice walk. Yeah. And then finally, seek help if you need it. So there's a tipping point, right?
Yeah.
So, if you are looking for support for yourself around this, or you're finding yourself struggling, I'm going to share this resource that was shared in the Very Well Mind article. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration at SAMHSA, National Helpline, 1-800-662-4357 for information on support in your area. So it's a resource that I wanted to share because it was in the article. So that's it for Sunday Scaries. All right. So wrapping it up here. I know I'm like minding my time. Really quickly, on my bookshelf this week is a book I read over the weekend. I just printed out a picture of the cover. I love the title, Chasing Me to My Grave. I learned about it from watching Antiques Roadshow, Becca.
Antiques Roadshow.
I know, right? Well, a woman brought a painting that was done by Winfred Rembrandt, sorry, I always say Rembrandt. I'm a little switching of the letters there. Who wrote this book in 2021, and it won the Pulitzer Prize in 2022.
What?
That I was like, what? What? And apparently he just passed away in right after, like within, I think, 6 months of the book coming out. So I was fascinated by the story. I was fascinated by the artwork.
Yeah.
And I thoroughly enjoyed. It was a very quick read. I read it in one day. Very quick book, but thoroughly enjoyed it. And then I did a deep dive, like researching online for pictures of the artwork that he's done. And so it's called Chasing Me to My Grave, a memoir of the Jim Crow South, an artist's memoir of the Jim Crow South.
Cool.
Highly recommend it. Really enjoyed it. And the work is just amazing. It was really cool because after I read the book and I went and looked at the pictures, I knew exactly what the story was behind the picture because I'd read the book. So it was very cool. All right, this week's quote.
Kevin Kelly.
This one's good. All right. He says, everyone's time is finite and shrinking. The highest leverage you can get with your money is to buy someone else's time. Hire and outsource where you can. This is something I've been trying to do for years, more mindfully and intentionally. So I'm just sharing that because a lot of what I highlighted today in terms of how to use some of the strategies around supporting yourself with the distress, eustress, and Sunday Scaries does tie to how much we're expecting ourselves to do. So maybe that could be a strategy to explore of what could I let go of, what could I outsource so that I'm not expecting everything to be me. That's it for this episode 124. I invite you to post any comments or share any strategies that have worked for you around Sunday Scaries, or if you try any of the strategies around the using eustress to shift from distress, what your experiences are. I'd love to hear it. And as always, take what works for you, leave the rest behind. And if you like this and you haven't already and you want to subscribe to the channel, come back next week and see what the number is. That's it for now. Till next time, tally ho.